Hi, I'm Reeves. Today we're going to be looking at a lot of cross-sectional anatomy. If you've never looked at cross-sectional anatomy before, it can be very difficult to interpret these images. It's a 3D object that's been sliced and is being viewed in 2 dimensions. Because of this, some objects appear very different than you would expect. So I'm going to do a little demonstration, and by the end of it, hopefully you'll have some of the tools that you need to read these images. So what I've done is taken a very long piece of yarn. I've actually sprayed it with a light glue. If you're trying to follow along at home, I would recommend using a kind of Elmer's glue just to keep it tacky and holding its shape when we do the rest of this project. So you're going to roll it into a ball and make sure you get everything kind of well mashed together. We want it pretty random. We don't want it consistent anywhere to really get the concept. Next, what we're going to do is take a really sharp pair of scissors and cut it right down the middle. Okay, so we've just cut the sphere right down the middle, and let's see what we see. Remember that we started with essentially one long tubular object. Technically, I started with 2 different pieces of yarn because I wanted you to get some contrasting colors and be able to see this a little bit more clearly. But in essence, we're talking of tubular objects. Okay, so we have some things that definitely resemble tubular objects from this angle, but we also have things that don't. For example, this piece right here, doesn't that kind of look like, if you saw that without context, you would think there was just one small piece of anatomy right there. And of course, your third option is, on end, these tubular objects just look like small circles. And that's something you're going to see a lot with blood vessels in particular in cross-sectional anatomy. Your blood vessel could look like you would expect a blood vessel. It could look like a small circle, or it can just be a tiny little isolated piece. You'll also have some oblong cuts, which are kind of hard to see with the yarn. Things that kind of look weird in cross-section, and hopefully this will give you an idea of what to expect. We have a really good example of this in the Luna database. There's a cross-section taken at the level of the kidney where you can view the renal vein exiting the kidney and joining up with the inferior vena cava. Unfortunately, that renal vein is very squiggly and that middle section drops out of our frame for a second. Hopefully after this demonstration you can tell why we would believe that renal vein to be continuous, even though we can't necessarily prove it just from this one cross-section. So take a look at our database and pay special attention to all of our cross-sectional anatomy. Be on the lookout for what you think might be blood vessels. Also, if you're unfamiliar with any of the vocabulary we've used today, don't stress about it too much. Some of the things in the database are well over high school level, and for the things that you may not be familiar with or might not be remembered that is part of this lesson plan, we'll be explaining all of that later.